Hi friends! I'm back with part 2 of my 2020 craft room tour, and today I'm focusing on the rest of my room you didn't see last time. I have 2 more fun giveaways today, so look for those details at the end of this video. We're going to start with my 5x5 Kallax unit. I honestly think these Kallax storage units are just super functional and helpful for any crafter looking to organize their supplies. If you followed me for a while, you know that this used to be packed top to bottom with stamping and card making supplies only. And I'll admit that it was hard to destash and clear some things out, but I finally realized there was a lot I wasn't using that was just taking up space, and honestly it made me feel guilty that I wasn't using it. So over the past year, as I started doing more alcohol ink work and more weaving, I started paring down my stamping supplies to make room for new things that just make me happy. First up is the top row of the Kallax and the space above it. I have fallen head over heels for weaving, and I needed to find a way to display my collection of yarns and roving so I could easily see what I had to work with, but also keep it out of cat range. On top of the Kallax, I keep my loom from roving textiles, and I have 2 clear fridge bins. One has all my neutral yarns and rovings, and the other stores my collection of vegan yarn and roving so that I don't get them mixed up. In the 3 fabric bins, I store needle felting supplies, extra ribbons and twine, and other fabric crafting supplies. I found an easy tutorial online to create dividers for my Kallax cubbies that are perfect for storing yarn and roving. You can purchase dividers made out of a variety of materials like MDF or wood that are meant for wine storage use in the Kallax, but I knew I didn't need anything quite that heavy duty just for yarn. So I used foam board to create those X dividers, and I'll link the tutorial I found below. They're perfect for keeping my stash together, and it cost me less than $5. I pushed them all the way to the back of the Kallax unit, which leaves me a little room to store more art yarn and ribbons in front of the colored collections. In the last cubby on top, I have a few plastic pouches that I use to store current and upcoming weaving projects. With the new kitten around, it's a good idea to keep things contained when they're on my desk, and these pouches are perfect so that I only have to keep my eye on one ball of yarn at a time. I also have dowels and driftwood I use for hanging my weavings here. Decorating the Kallax are 2 garlands of rainbow wool balls from Sheep Farm Felt. You can get all sorts of color and color combinations from her shop. The second row, first cubby, holds additional weaving and embroidery supplies, including some smaller looms and hoops, and my embroidery thread collection that's contained in plastic organizers. The next 3 cubbies are the start of my stamp collection that continues in the next 2 rows. I used to have 12 cubbies full of stamps and dies, and have recently brought my stash down to like 6.5, and it feels really good. I kept my current design team collections and only what I truly love and use regularly, and the rest found good homes with these stashes. It gives me a little room to add new items as they are released, but keeps me contained enough that if I start to get full, it's time to take a hard look and do another destash. I used Jennifer McGuire's method of storing stamps in fridge bin containers, but modified it a little bit to suit my needs best. I use plastic DVD dividers to label all of my stamp companies, and then keep the stamps organized by company in Avery L storage pockets behind each divider. I have a local print shop cut down cheap white cardstock, as well as my beloved Paper Tray Ink Hawaiian Shores cardstock to use as backers. All of my pockets are labeled with the company name and the name of the stamp. If it's just a stamp set, it has a white backer in the pocket. If it's just a die set, it has a teal backer. And if it's both, it has both backers, as well as a teal sticker on the front to easily show me that I own the coordinating dies for that set. When I first started crafting, I didn't always purchase coordinating dies, so this is a really great time saver for me to see what I'm working with as I flip through my stamps. The stickers I have are removable and don't leave a residue behind when removed. I had my friend Christy over at Planet Out Loud custom match the stickers to Hawaiian Shores cardstock so that it would look cohesive. I used the same system for all my 4x6, 6x8, and 6x6 stamp sets. The only difference is in that my 6x6 and 6x8 bins, I don't use dividers by companies because I don't really have enough of them to bother. In the last Kallax column, I have 3 cubbies of inks, and these are my Bold Hybrid, Shadow, and Pigment inks from Hero Arts, and my inks from Ink on 3 and Lawn Fawn. Like the inks on my desk, they are labeled on all 4 sides, and I have little swatch dots on each side so I can easily see the colors. They are stored in organized Moore ink storage units built specifically for the Kallax. There are 2 different style organizers here. There are original units on top that pretty much only hold the classic rectangle-sized ink pads, and the newer unit on the bottom that will also hold distress and stamping up sized pads. I pushed the cubbies back a bit so I have room to store some extra blending tools and favorite wood-mounted stamps in front. I also have one cubby on this Kallax that holds cardstock, but I'll explain my cardstock situation when we get to the main storage for that. This cubby holds all of my metallic and glitter cardstocks, as well as vellum and foam sheets that I tend to reach for the most. I also keep my Daniel Smith swatch chart here. I took the dot chart from Daniel Smith and carefully Xeroxed each page. Then I used the dots to watercolor strips of watercolor paper in the same order as the swatch chart. I trimmed the watercolor paper down and adhered them over the Xerox charts so that I have an easy way to view all the available colors. I still have the leftover dot charts in another place that I can still use if I need a little bit of one color. In the first few cubbies on the 4th row, I store my oversized stamps, my snowball microphone and cords, paper pads, stencils, and swatch album. I also have a few old Stampin' Up! Cases that I've labeled and added Velcro dots inside. Each dot holds a blending pad for a Hero Arts ink pad. When I'm working with those inks, I just bring the cases over to my desk so I have access to each blending pad. This is a great storage system if you don't have room for individual blending tools for each ink pad you own, but you want a way to keep them organized. Next, my stencils are on 6x6 albums, and each stencil has its own labeled pocket. I just find this to be the easiest way for me to organize and find my stencils quickly and efficiently. I also have a swatch album that's filled with 2x2 pocket pages. I keep my swatches for my alcohol inks, watercolor brush markers, ink pads, liquid watercolors, etc. in here. I actually need to update it by removing some of the ink pads I've destashed and adding more of the alcohol inks I've acquired. Most likely when it's updated, I'll use a second album book just for my alcohol inks, so I can keep those stored in another room with my alcohol ink supplies. I also have a bin for my collection of Lawn Fawn 6x6 pattern paper pads. I've been hoarding these for years and have a lot of the older retired pads I just can't bear to part with yet. Above that, I store a few other pattern paper pads I reach for regularly, including those from Honeybee Stamps, MFT, and Waffle Flower. Next, I have a bin for my foiling supplies. I haven't quite come up with a good system for organizing these yet, so I'd love to know if you have any suggestions. Basically, if I'm going to do any foiling, I just bring the whole bin to my desk. My small collection of foiling dies is also stored here. The bottom row houses lots of storage. First up is another one of those secret shame stashes. Just like my glitters and embossing powders in my desk, I also hoard shiny, sparkly embellishments. I don't use them quite as much as I used to, but it's still nice to be able to find the perfect color or mix for shakers and card embellishments. I use the little Elizabeth Ward bead containers in varying sizes to store all my sequins, confettis, and mixes by color and type, and the last bin on the side contains all my most used and favorites that I tend to reach for the most. Again, this probably needs a strict destash, but for now I'll just keep collecting them. Next, I have all of my watercolor palettes and tubes of paint. My most used paints are dried in palettes in my Raskog cart, but I have the tubes stored here where I can access them if I need more. My mom also watercolors, and I'll often swatch out and share some of the paints I have with her and a few other crafty friends. The next cubby stores my ink pad refills, marker refills, acrylic paint, and liquid watercolors. Honestly, there's no fancy storage here. I don't have to use these very often, so I don't feel as strong a need for anything fancy. It's easy enough to pull out a bin and root around for a specific color when it's needed. My next cubby holds a couple random items. I have my laminator and a few more foiling supplies, mostly my loose foils and gels. On the bottom is a bin that holds some extra cut cardstock, and I also have a few toned gray and toned craft paper pads here for colored pencil work. My last cubby is mostly blocked by the stool here, but it's stuff I reach for very rarely. It's my travel organizers for embroidery and needle felting supplies, and a bin that holds oversized finished cards. so things like slimline or three-dimensional cards that don't fit well in my other card bin. And that's my biggest Kallax. It's definitely the organizational workhorse in my craft room, and it was worth every penny. For safety reasons, I do have all of my Kallax units attached to studs in the walls just to make sure there's no risk of them toppling over, but in general they're super sturdy and hold a ton of stuff. Moving left, there's the closet for this room. I removed the doors to give me a little more room, and then I mostly use this for storage and taking card photos. I fit 2 studio lights inside as well as a diffuser, and take most of my card photos here. Above that, I have a few art pieces that I love. First is a quilt piece from one of my Instagram friends, Roberta, who's known as Quilly Cat online. Then I have a little hoop wreath with a felted otter from an Etsy shop. The woman who made it was commissioned to make a babymobile when I was pregnant. When she was finished, she had the otter left over and made him into a little wreath as a gift. As most of you know, I lost my baby at 22 weeks, and the mobile is now carefully packed away, but I decided to keep the wreath out to remind me of the good memories I have of being pregnant. Finally, I have another string art piece from Honaker Home. Moving along, I have another Kallax. This one is 2x4 and houses my cardstock and my photography props. On top, I have a lamp, some of my larger floral photography props, a couple sentimental knickknacks, and all of my creative and artsy books and workbooks. In the first 6 cubbies, I store my colored cardstocks. I've kind of modified 2 storage systems from Michelle Short and Jennifer Kinney that I'll link below to fit my needs. I used to use job pockets for my cardstock storage, but I have more bulk cardstock now, and those pockets really aren't meant to hold more than 8 to 10 sheets of paper comfortably without starting to bend the corners. Now I use magazine dividers to label and identify each cardstock brand and color. Then behind the divider I keep a labeled page protector sheet to store the scraps of each color. And that's followed by the stash of cardstock. I have 4 magazine holders from the Container Store in each cubby that holds the cardstock. And since the cubbies are deeper than the cardstock, I bought some cheap 2x10s at Home Depot, had them cut down to 13 inches apiece, and stacked 2 of them in the back of each cubby to keep the dividers pushed to the front. I love that I can tip over the divider when I pull a cardstock out so that it's easy to put the scraps back, and also to pull the name so that I remember what I used for my blog posts. I definitely find myself reaching more for colored cardstock these days. I've been using this cardstock storage system for the past 2 months, and I just love it. It took me years to find something that would work well for me, and this really does it. In the bottom 2 cubbies, I store some props for my card photos, fake flowers, sparkly garlands, Christmas ornaments, things like that. As you can see, the props are very tempting to the kitten, which is why they're stored safely away in the bins. On the other side of the Kallax unit, I have a banner that stores more of my enamel pins. And on the floor here, I have my photo boards that I use for photography. Unfortunately, the photo boards are no longer shipped to the US, but if you live in Europe and are looking for photography options, I highly recommend them. And on the floor, I have 2 beautiful handmade woven rag rugs. They're both made by my super talented mother-in-law, so unfortunately I don't have a shopping link for them, but I keep hoping she'll start making some to sell soon, and if she does, I'll let you know. Next, I have a second smaller workspace. I have 2 Kallax draw bases topped with a Linman tabletop and a small Kallax add-on on top of the tabletop. On the top, I have a mix of decorative and functional items. I found the pretty coral cake tray at Home Goods a few years ago and used it to hold a few IKEA containers and gorgeous pottery from Tenenholtz and Tiny Supply. The containers hold a variety of pens, pencils, and my calligraphy holders. Next, I have 2 marker organizers from Organize More that hold my Caron markers and most of my planning markers, Copic multiliners, and pens I use for writing and cards. In the cute fox mug, I have several handmade pens. Next, I have a 3-shelf washi tape holder from Michaels. They don't seem to carry the same style anymore, but they do have a slightly different version available. Next to that, I have a 5-drawer acrylic unit that holds my Altenew layering mini ink cubes. I have the full set of these inks in minis and refills. I love how the colors work together, but I didn't want the full-size pads just for space reasons. On top of that, I have a few more decorative bowls in varying sizes that I use for a variety of things. Sometimes when I'm mass producing a card and have lots of little pieces or dies to keep track of, I'll put a couple bowls on my desk to help keep things contained. The 2 drawers on top of the desk hold all my letterboard supplies and my random electronic chargers, cords, screen covers, manuals, and things like that. And on my desk, I also have a little acrylic holder that holds a stack of cards I can easily reach for if I need a thank you, birthday, or hello card. On the left side, I have a junk drawer that holds lots of little desk supplies. Paper clips, business cards, checkbooks, things like that. Below it, I store cute little pencil bags and pouches. Below that, I store cute journals and notebooks. There's a little bit of a theme here. I've always loved stationery supplies and enjoy finding little pouches or notebooks whenever I travel. The only problem is that after I get them, I don't actually want to use them. But I've started being better about using them for sketch ideas for cards and crafting. Below that, I keep my planner supplies. I use the Happy Planner system now and keep some of my punches and covers and old planners here. And finally on that side, I have packing supplies for shipping or mailing items. On the right side, I keep postage and address books in the top drawer. I like using older vintage stamps and keep them in color collections or themes to use on envelopes. Below that, I keep my hand lettering supplies, notebooks, and inks. It's another one of those interests that I haven't had as much time to invest in as I'd like, but hopefully someday. And below that, I keep my envelopes. I love envelopes from Cards and Pockets, Gina K, and Hero Arts. Next are my card mailing supplies, return address stamps and labels, and wax seal supplies. Finally, the last drawer holds more of my pre-cut cardstock, A2 panels, card bases, and stamp storage backer panels. It's helpful when I have items like that ready to go, so that I don't have to spend a full day just cutting cardstock. Above the desk, I have more art that I've collected over the years and my wall-mounted TV for those Grey's Anatomy and Law & Order SVU marathons while crafting. I think my most treasured piece is an original wisteria watercolor from Yao Cheng. I also have artwork prints from Nina Stajner, Sandy Allnock, and a few other artists. The jellyfish is an acrylic painting I purchased, of all places, at a coffee house years ago, and I wish I knew the artist, but I can't make out the signature, and since then the coffee house is also closed. I also have a mandala piece from an Etsy artist, one of Jessica Young Art's early original alcohol ink canvases, and a few other pieces I found at craft fairs over the years. Before I move on to my last piece of furniture, I want to quickly share 2 very important things on my desk that I forgot about last week. First is my desk light. My eyesight is pretty awful, so I've been wanting to invest in a really strong bright light that wasn't too yellow. I found the daylight company through another crafty friend, and I decided to invest in a Luminos light, and I don't regret it one bit. It has 3 brightness settings and can be easily moved around to highlight things as closely as you need them when you're working. I also love that the cast of the light is more similar to daylight, so it's nice and white and bright and not too yellow or blue, which is helpful for videos. The light I had before was the extra wide OttLite that I'll also link below. I still use that light in my resin room, and I highly recommend it as a budget-friendly option. Again, it's not the greatest for filming videos, and it's definitely not as bright as this one, but it's a great work light and it's one of the best options out there. It has 5 brightness levels and 3 different warmth settings. Both lights clamp onto your work desk and can accommodate a pretty thick desk if necessary. And for filming videos, I finally invested in a ceiling mount. I used to use an Archon mount that I also still use in my resin room, but apparently I'm a pretty active ink blender because I kept making the camera shake, which wasn't great for filming steady videos. So I hired an electrician to come in and add an electrical outlet to my ceiling. It was a bit easier and cheaper because I already had a light fixture nearby on the ceiling. I definitely love the ease of just turning on a video camera overhead when it's time to get to work. My last piece of furniture is another 2x2 Kallax unit pushed up against my main work desk. On top, I keep my silhouette, my main recording microphone, a tiny handheld vacuum for my desk, and a little trash can from Lotsa Style, and my Happy Planner. I keep my planner and stickers in a bin with the current pens, highlighters, and markers I like to use. In the left column of the Kallax, I keep my finished cards organized by occasion. In the top right cubby, I have 2 IKEA drawers. In the top, I keep my Altenew washi tape collection and all the backer cards and backers for my enamel pins. I'm not sure why, but I kind of love all the different designs of the back of cards for the enamel pins almost as much as I love the pins. Below that, I keep more watercoloring supplies, some of my ceramic palettes, and water containers. And finally, in my last cubby, I have more storage. In the top bin, I have all my gels, pastes, and spatulas for stencils. And in the bottom bin, I keep all the happy mail I've received over the years from crafty friends, so that I can occasionally rotate some of the cards on my card display above. I also just love to look back on some of the wonderful memories and friendships and see the beautiful works of art my friends have created. And that's it from my craft room. You've pretty much now seen every nook and cranny, and I hope you've enjoyed the closer look. It's always a work in process, but like I said in my last video, I try to make the room really reflect my love of organization and color, combined with things that just make me happy. I try to remember every now and then, especially when I'm struggling with a creative block, to just look around at some of the art, the details, the colors, and it really helps me remember why I love being creative and doing what I do. I hope I've given you some storage or organization ideas, or just ideas for adding some pretty art to your walls. And again, I've got a few amazing giveaways and discount codes for you. As a reminder, the 10% store-wide discount code from Organize More is Sparkle10, and it's still valid through the rest of August. And the exclusive 30% discount code on the Makeup Organizer from Lotsa Style is 30Jessica30 and is still valid through the rest of the month. I also have a 30% discount code on the magnetic rack from Lotsa Style that's valid through the month of August. I've been using this rack in my resin room, and I'll show you more of that room soon, but it's a great add-on to any craft cart like the Raskog or the Recollections cart from Michaels. This time I thought I'd do more pretty rather than functional giveaways, so I have a $25 gift card to give away to the Grey Muse Creative Shop that you can use on Ruby's gorgeous enamel pins or some of her cute stamp sets. And last but not least, I have a $75 Etsy gift card. I find lots of gorgeous creative art on Etsy like the Honecker Home string art or the mandala or several of my watercolor prints. You can also find some of the organizers I use on Etsy as well, so I thought that would be a useful giveaway. For a chance to win the $25 gift card to the Grey Muse Creative Shop or the $75 gift card to Etsy, like this video, comment with your favorite organizational tip or trick, and subscribe to my channel. You can also share this video for an extra chance to win. Please comment below if you share it and let me know where you shared it. Finally, I've tried to link all the major products I use and love below with a full list over on my blog. But if there's something I've missed, please leave a comment and I'll try to source it for you. Thanks so much for watching, have an amazing day, and until next time, happy crafting. Bye!